Hello, hello, and welcome back to my Introduction to RimWorld video series. This is video 3. We have just finished the first day on our new world that we've crash landed on. We've been able to get up our first room, move all of our materials that would deteriorate into that room, and actually get a table and beds up for our colonists so that they're a little bit happier with this initial setup and won't have as many debuffs going into the first week of building up this colony. Sorry for the length of my last video. I tend to ramble on and, get distracted and talk too loquaciously about all the different aspects of the game because there are a lot to it. There is a lot to it. But today we're going to try to keep it a little bit shorter, a little bit sweeter. And I'm just going to continue with this colony and basically talk about things that come up when they come up. But where we ended up last time is we started to talk about the different zones. I mentioned the stockpile zones for items, and we set up a few growing zones for planting rice and corn. Another big zoning thing I want to talk about is allowable areas. This means you can set up a zone and anyone that you assign, both people or animals, to that zone will stay. All of their duties or work that they would have to do would only be permitted within that zone. They can't go out of it, and they won't work on anything that's outside of that zone. By default, all of your colonists start off assigned to unrestricted. They can go anywhere on the map. There's no place that is off limits. In general, that's what you want your colonists to stay on, unless there's very specific reasons for why you don't want colonists to go in a certain area. Maybe there is a mech cluster that has a proximity alarm area around it and you don't want them accidentally triggering it. Then you might create a zone to avoid that area. Another reason you might make a zone for people would be to hunker down. I usually have a hunker down zone later on when I have an established perimeter and I want all of my colonists to stay within the walls of the colony because there might be an external threat that is on the outside, and I just want everyone to stay inside and not even go out of the doors. So I usually set up a zone for that. Since we're still really early on, there's really not much to do with zones, except we do have a pet. We have this horse, Tova. Horses are great, like I've said in the past, because they can be trained on anything. I'm actually going to set their training to increase. I also think I mentioned last video that this animal would not be able to get food on their own. That was incorrect. It's not a predator, so it won't, attack wild animals and eat them on their own, but it can eat live plants. So that means it's a grazer. I must have had just a little mental block last time, but horses, of course, can graze. So we can have them set up in a zone where they're just going to eat the grass and bushes that grow in that area. But really, there's no reason to restrict our horse too much. You don't want it to wander too far away because anytime their colonist goes to train it, it will chase it down. And if it's running all over the map, that's a lot of wasted time. But honestly, the horse isn't going to veer too far away unless it gets attacked or something. But what we don't want is the horse going in here for a few reasons. One, if you look at the horse, they have a filth rate, animal filth rate. It actually is at 1, which is a higher filth rate than most animals. So this animal will cause, filth anywhere they go. If you have a domesticated dog like a Labrador or a Husky, they actually don't have a filth rate. So you can let them into your rooms and the different rooms of your colony without worrying about them, making it a lot dirtier than it normally would get. Horses, however, are fairly, wild animals, so they create a lot of filth. So we want to make sure that the horse doesn't go into this room to make it dirty. We also don't want the horse to go into this room because this is where we have our packaged survival meals. This is our only food right now. And if the horse is near it and is hungry, it'll totally eat packaged survival meals because that's one of the foods that it'll eat. So we're going to restrict our horse, Tova, to basically, it can go anywhere except right now in this room. So how would we do that is we would go to Architect, we would go to Zone, and we're going to expand allowed areas. And we're going to right click here, and this is where you would determine what area you're going to be expanding. And we're going to go to Manage Areas. We're going to create, we could create a new one, but there's already Area 1 that's by default set up for you. And we're just going to rename this. We're going to rename this, grazers. So this would apply to any animals that can graze on live plants, and we want to keep them outside of the rooms, right? So we've created that zone. We're going to close that, and then we're going to expand their allowed areas. I'm going to do something here that might seem counterintuitive initially, but I'll explain why. And we're going to put the allowable zone to be this room. Now, you might be thinking, didn't you just say we want the horse not to be in that room? Yes, that is correct. But here's a little trick that's much easier. Since the zone that we're going to create actually is a big zone with a very small area that we don't want them to inhabit, we can actually highlight that area we actually don't want them to be in. And then we go back to Manage Areas, and we're going to invert that zone. So now you can see, real quick, when I hover over the grazers, now the zone is the whole map except that room. So now Tova, well, here's another thing. We've just created the zone, but we got to remember to tell Tova to go into that zone. So right now Tova is unrestricted, and we're going to switch it to grazers. So you can do that right here from the individual person or animal screen here, or you can go into animals, and here the allowed areas, they were on unrestricted. You can click them over to grazers. So now Tova is in the grazer zone, and it will be allowed to go anywhere except inside this room. All right, so that's a little bit about zones. And as we, continue to build and we have more rooms that we do not want Tova to enter, we will clear more areas. So we can go to clear, click it, and then go to grazers. And if we had like a room right over here, we could eliminate that area from the zone. But for right now, heck, we'll allow Tova to go anywhere other than that room. So that's a little bit about allowable zones. They work the same for animals and people, and you can assign animals and people to the same zone. They're just areas of allowance. I usually have a zone, like I said, for hunkering down, all my colonists to stay within the walls of the community. I also have usually a pet safe zone. When stuff starts popping off and you have enemies on the map, most of your animals are not meant to be attacking or getting in the way of those attacks. And so I like to set up a safe zone where they can go and hunker down and not be attacked by enemies, because there's nothing worse than losing a beloved pet because it just wandered into a battlefield because it was not zoned properly. All right, so that's a bit about zones. The last zone I want to talk about, we can talk about roofs and stuff later, but the other one I want to talk about is the home zone. The home zone is it's a zone that you want to be constantly managing because a home zone determines basically what your property is. If we look here, what it's considering our property right now is this area here, over here where we made some growing plants, planting zones, and over here. Now you might be wondering, why did that place get zoned up? Well, I don't really remember what we initially did over here, but by default, if you look here, there is this check mark where it says automatically toggle expanding the home area around new constructions. So anything you build or make on this map, it will automatically make a radius of the home zone around it. I usually actually check this off. The reason for this is a lot of times I'm going to be building something away from my home that I don't want to be considered part of the home zone. Well, why wouldn't you want it to be considered part of the home zone? Well, a home zone determines what a character considers to be the colony, right? And that means what it needs to upkeep. And what that means is they will be cleaning that area. So I usually eliminate any home zones that are just on the ground because I don't want the colonists to spend their time basically cleaning dirt outside, right? So I usually restrict this quite a bit. Now, there is reason to keep a home zone in the outside, and that reason is for firefighting. So a colonist will only fight fires that happen and occur within the home zone. If we get a fire during one of these playthroughs, hopefully you'll be able to see how you would fight fires. But basically, if there's an area that you want them to extinguish the fire in, I would then make that a home zone until they extinguish the fire, and then I would eliminate that home zone, just so that they're not constantly trying to clean up that outside area. A home zone also determines what things they will also maintain. So if you have let's say a power generator that ends up breaking down, normally if that was in a home zone, a colonist would automatically repair it. But if it's not in a home zone, colonists will ignore it. So you might have a power generator that has been broken down for a while and it's never getting repaired because it's not in a home zone. If you ever figure out why you can't interact with something, like repair something or clean something up, and it's not even giving you the option to, check your home zones. Make sure that the thing that you're trying to interact with is in a home zone. If it isn't, it won't give you the option to clean it or repair it. Also, colonists will automatically rebuild things that were destroyed if they happen to be in the home zone. So if a raiding party comes and breaks some of these walls up to try to get into our room, if this wall was in the home zone, a colonist later, if we survived, will automatically set that to be rebuilt. Again, I don't like my home zone automatically expanding. I personally like to keep a lot of control over it. Starting off, you might want to have this because it's easy to forget. And if you forget about your home zone and you build something that's important and it's not home zoned, it's easy to forget about. So just for the sake of ease, you might want to keep that going. All right. So I think we'll just keep going, and I'm going to talk about now the other buildings, the things you need to build after you've finished that first day. So we already have a piece of recreation. We have a second piece of recreation coming in the form of the chess table. And we have our central building. Now, this is good for the first day, but as soon as possible, we're going to want to get our colonists into their own separate bedrooms. We're also going to want an area for just storage. See, right now we have everything happening in this room, but we're going to want a room that's for storage so that things don't deteriorate, but they also don't get in the way of people doing their thing, because things just laying down on the floor is considered ugly, and so they don't like that environment. So you want to have a separate room to store stuff. We're also going to want a room to store specifically food and animal corpses so that we can turn that into a freezer once we have some coolers and power set up so that stuff doesn't spoil. So I'm going to take a second now to kind of outline and think about what my next buildings are, where they're going to occur, and how we're going to set this up. So I have the planning mod installed so I can get a sense of like how big I want certain things. So I always think about where my freezer is going to be. You might want it to be kind of close to your crops because when the crops come in, it's less space for them to walk. But you also want to think about where it can expand, because almost always you think you make a big enough freezer, but then your colony gets bigger and you either have to make another freezer elsewhere or expand your existing freezer. So I'm going to make my freezer a little bit separate from starting room. Some people like to link all their rooms together and keep your whole colony under roofs. That is totally a preference. It makes it easier to defend in a lot of ways, but it also can make colonists upset because they like to be outside every once in a while. So I'm going to think about, I think I'm going to make, my cooler something like here, maybe add another row, something like that. So I think that's a fairly good size for the cooler, at least starting off. Next to the cooler, you're also going to think about wanting your cooking area and your butchering area. You're also going to want to keep these things separate. So that was the interior of my cooking area. Let me just see, where is this zone here happen? Okay, so I'm actually going to expand my plans a little bit because I want to turn this outside into the walls. This is just how I think about planning. For a freezer, a lot of times it's good to have a double door. It's a lot of times good to double wall it. I'm not worrying about that right now. A little pink square there to show where I want to put a door. So we're going to have a door here. I think it'd be nice to just have the cooking and butchering area right there. So there'd be a door here and a door here. So you'd have like a cooking stove here and a butchering table kind of there. I think that would be good. Again, you're going to want to, as soon as possible, make this stuff out of stone or some material that isn't wood, but really wood is our only resource right now because we don't have stone cutting up and going. That's another thing that we're going to want to get going really soon. So we're going to need a lot of wood for this. Let's set a lot of things to be chopped. We're going to want stuff chopped around the rich soil. And let's just start building it. So I'm going to start building wooden wall. Actually, maybe we want another door. Maybe right here. I, in general, only like one point of ingress and egress from the freezer. Otherwise, colonists will start using it as like a shortcut, and I don't like my freezer getting a lot of traffic. It's not a big deal because the important thing to keep clean is your cooking area and not so much where you store your food. But it's just something to think about. The more these doors are open, the more, the cold air is leached out into the world. So you have to think about that too. You want to keep this nice and cool. All right, so that's going to be our kind of cooking area. And again, I don't care about them building this stuff yet. So I'm going to unallow that. Let's just get this main big room set up. Another building that's good to make early on is a storage area for the items. So this is going to be for our food and stuff. The storage for our items, maybe it would be this room. This, I think I'm going to turn into our dining area. It's not that big. Room impressiveness is determined by a lot of things. One of them is how big a room is. If it's really cramped, it is not a nice space to be in. So in general, you want your pawns to be in these rooms that are nice, big, and spacious, pretty, and clean. So how pretty it is, how wealthy it is, basically how impressive the stuff is in it. So if you have a lot of marble statues or something in it, then it's more impressive to be in. So if that's our cooler, I'm going to want another area that is just for other kind of stuff. And this can be our storage, our dual purpose storage for everything for right now. But once we actually get a cooler in, we're going to want this just to be for food and meat and stuff like that. So let me build another structure. I want to plan this out. I'll plan it out a little bit. So that's that. Let's say we have trying to think about where our walls are going to be. So we're going to kind of do that. We might do a wall here, and here. So maybe I'll do a storage. Maybe kind of something like this. Again, I know some of you are probably like, this is not a very efficient or doesn't look very pretty that you have set up here. You know, it's everyone's preference. I usually don't care too much about the aesthetics of my layout. I like it to be as efficient as possible, but I also don't care too much about that. That's not where I enjoy this game, is obsessing over the details of the layout of the colony. A lot of my friends love obsessing over those details, and that is totally fine. And that's why I like this game, is that there are so many different ways to enjoy it and to play for your enjoyment. So I am going to set up this to be kind of my item storage area. And again, I'm going to queue this all up. Just do this. I'm going to queue all of this up and set these doors. And I'm going to unallow this whole thing. I don't care about them making that yet. I'll have the time keep going. Since we have enough stuff to build and do, it'll give them a lot of stuff. Okay, gonna start thinking about bedrooms. Right, so I usually keep a bedroom. Bedrooms are interesting because you want them to be comfortable for your colonists because it gives them nice room bonuses or mood bonuses. But it's also a bit, once you have a lot of colonists, it's going to take up a lot of space to give them all their own rooms. So I tend to do a sort of 3x5 model. So we use red as their bedrooms. I usually like to have 3x5 is kind of the... Sometimes I do a 3x6. Well, let's do 3x6. Let's give these colonists plenty of room. 3x6, 3x6, and 3x6. All right, kind of like that. So we're going to structure, build, wooden wall, make it everything out of wood right now. Again, I want to not allow these because I don't want them to start building here. And yeah, so this is just some of the things to think about, what you want to build and how to build it, what to think about. Good, awesome. So they already have this set up. So we can actually delete that storage space. We're going to make a new one. Stockpile zone in here. Again, we want everything in here for right now. Soon we'll restrict it to just food. But we want everything in here. The last thing I'll think about is, you hear me talking about, oh, we need to start doing stone cutting. Oh, we need to start doing, research later down the line. Well, you're going to want an area that is your production workshop area. So again, just trying to be mindful of where my limits of my colony are. So I might actually have them do some work. I'll have their workshop be like right here. I like to make the workshop nice and big because there's going to be a lot of things in it and a lot of production. If you go here to production, here's the things we can build right now. An art bench, a tailoring section, the stove and butcher we're going to put over here. A fueled stove, a stonecutter's bench, a smelter, and a research table. All those can go in here. And even the research bench, it's fairly big. It's like 3 by 2. So you want to have your workshop to be nice and big. So let's plan that out. And then we'll plan that out. We'll get the blueprints up for that. And then that'll be, I think that'll be it for this video. Again, this is just some things to think about as you're going through this. This is a much more haphazard colony than I usually end up making because I'm just sort of making it off of the top of my head. I usually spend a lot of time thinking about the layout, what would be easy to defend, and things like that. But for the purposes of this, I'm just giving you a sense of, some things you should be thinking about, but I'm sort of just doing it real time, so I'm not giving it too much thought. So there's going to be our workshop. And you can see they've now completed their second day. They've all sleeping in their beds. Let's see how their needs are. Again, they don't like this barrack, so hopefully by the next day, by tomorrow, we'll finish these bedrooms for them, get them moved over into those, turn this into just a full dining room area, get everything moved over there. Oh, and I think I still have their work priority a little bit. We don't care about hauling as much anymore. We'll turn that down. And I think we're good here. We still want them to be plant cutting. And Nessa, I want to be constructing first and foremost. Great. Look, she got construction 4. Now, next video, we can start making power and start putting in coolers and have a look of actually a modern colony. I hope you found this video informative. I know I rambled on again, as I always do. But if you have any questions or comments or concerns, please share them with me. I'd be happy to get back to you in the comments or make a video about whatever you have a question about. But until that time, enjoy playing on RimWorld and have fun.